Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of PropTech, brought to you by VendorPM. I'm Bril, the CEO and co-founder of VendorPM. This podcast has been a long-standing vision of mine and our team, and so we wanted to create a platform to amplify the most influential voices in PropTech and hear their views on the state of the industry and their vision for the future. And so each month, I'll be chatting with an industry leader to bring you their unique insights and key perspectives on what makes or breaks success in PropTech. So tune in for lessons and takeaways from buyers, advice from founders, and expert opinions on how technology is revolutionizing real estate in 2025 and beyond. And so without further ado, let's dive right into the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Voices of PropTech by VendorPM. On the hot seat today is Mr. Michael Beckerman, CEO of CREtech, the largest conference company devoted to technology and sustainability in the built world. With a career spanning over 3 decades, Michael is a true thought leader in the space and has firsthand insights into the evolution of PropTech and what the future holds for our industry. Mr. Beckerman, if I was to ask many of the thousands of people that attend CREtech, who is Michael Beckerman and what does he do? What would they answer?
I mean, my hope, my wish would be they would say, "Who's Michael Beckerman?" Like
Good answer.
if somebody said that, I've done my job, because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that person that, singularly is identified with either a company or an industry or an ecosystem or a movement or a trend. I've been trying to avoid that my whole career. Yeah, I'll be out in front and I'll sort of be an advocate and a promoter and a carnival barker for our ecosystem. But what's most important to me is that people would say, they were very purposeful in helping grow our business. Like, we came to CREtech and Michael and his team, were instrumental in scaling our business. I mean, if that's what I can accomplish, then I think we've done our job. So yeah, less about me, just about the outcome.
Okay, but more about you for a second. If we were to ask, let's take an example. Some of our mutual friends, let's say Colin and Jim over at Boston Properties as an example. I said, what do you think about Michael? How would you describe him? About the person, not about CREtech. What do you think they would say?
I would say, that he has good taste in music. He loves his family, and he's an honorable, decent guy that does the right thing and tells the truth. And it's not, I don't want to be, although we're doing a podcast and you're talking to me and you're interviewing me and I had my own, I don't want to be the guy that is defined by ego or promotion. So I would hope it would be more who's Michael? Somebody that really helped our business in a myriad of ways. That's I just want to be helpful.
I have had such a genuine pleasure, not in any way, shape, or form a cliche, such a genuine pleasure of actually learning over the years who you truly are, or at least what I believe you truly are. And you've shared your journey with me, which is not a typical one and not one that when I look at Michael Beckerman on the surface, I would have guessed even for a second. And it truly is interesting. Not necessarily the professional one, but the personal one that kind of weaves and navigates through the professional one. Can you share more on that journey, like really where it all began and how you've evolved to the person you are today in this moment?
I think for really a big part of my life, I sort of ran from it. I hid from it. I was ashamed by it. And I think as you get older and you just, you meet more people from different walks of life and you try and step out of your own bubble, you realize that, listen, everybody's got something. Everybody's got some baggage and, some hurdles that they've had to overcome and some, valleys they've been in and mountains that they've climbed. So I don't know. I just don't want to set mine out to be like anything unique. I mean, I grew up in a fairly challenging home life. One of 5 kids in suburban New Jersey, where I've lived my whole life. Proud Jerseyan. Didn't really have much sort of hands-on sort of either mentoring or teaching most of my life. It was kind of just where the wild things are. And that was kind of like my house and how I grew up. And, you learn self-reliance. You learn eventually that, the challenges and the tribulations and the trials and the struggles, they're things not to run from. They're things to embrace if you can learn from them. And, throughout my whole entire journey, it's been sort of like one challenge after another. And, you come to just sort of embrace them and see, okay, here's another one today. What do we got? Let's go. what's the lesson here? I mean, I wasn't a very good student in high school. And, I did get into a college. It wasn't a great school. And I lasted like about a year or so. And, I just went back home during one of the breaks, and my parents had a very small business, and they were really struggling mightily. And I didn't really know anything about business. I didn't study it. I didn't have any aspirations. I mean, my goal was to be like a park ranger in life. Like I just wanted to be outside. But then I stepped into this, like, sort of role of saving their business as a 19, 20-year old, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I stepped into that, and then eventually stabilized that, and then went on my own journey. And yeah, I've really just been on my own, building my own stuff for I mean 40 something years. So it's always like, for me, I'm not scared of the blank canvas. I actually kind of gravitate towards it. So it's like, what, where can I learn? What don't I know? And where can I challenge myself? So that's kind of like my overriding philosophy in my own career is like, let's go where nobody's there, and let's figure it out. And, I think through that sort of childhood and early formative years, I built up this sort of grit, and, I cannot be defeated. I mean, I will not be defeated. I might not, scale to the heights that I don't really measure myself against others. It's just like, how am I doing? There's a couple, sort of themes in my life that have always sort of stuck with me. It's Theodore Roosevelt's Man in the Arena. That theme, that's me. That's who I am. I'm not the smartest. I didn't really study anything. I don't have any formal education. I never had a mentor in life, in business. Nobody really helped me when I was coming up. And I look at that and say, it's okay to be that guy. It's okay to be that one that's just toiling in the mud and the dirt and making mistakes and, just getting up and having scraped knees and, bloody elbows and mud on your face. That's who I am. That's me. And so when I started to get my sort of footing, I said to myself, well, when I came up, I didn't have any help. Nobody helped me. I didn't have any business mentors. I didn't have any teachers. I had nothing. So I was out in the friggin' desert, man. And then when I started to get my footing, probably in my like 20s, I said to myself, my mission will be to help anybody that I can. So when you go, the long-winded answer to who is Michael Beckerman, I just want to be that guy. Like, whether you're a college kid looking for direction in your career, or you're a hugely successful CEO of a company like VendorPM, or you're changing jobs, I'm the guy you can count on me to be helpful. And that's sort of how I look at my life and my role.
You said that you are someone who can't be defeated. And I literally have this quote in my town hall meetings in my board deck. It's, you can't beat someone who never gives up. It is physically impossible. And I resonate so much with the way that you said that. And before I ask my next question, that piece you mentioned about, not necessarily having any real mentors growing up, not really having any true help. Like, over the past 5 years, this has not been easy. This has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do to build VendorPM. And you genuinely have been a friend and a mentor throughout all of this. That is the kind of support CEOs and founders need to continue doing what they're doing. So you may not have had that, but I'm very grateful that I have that in you. So thank you.
Very kind, my friend. I think just one point on that, and we've talked about it.
Yes.
I think, you know, this journey that we're on, this entrepreneurial blank canvas. I see something. I'm going to go build it. Uh, I know it's going to be hard as hell. It's probably not, probably, I underestimated how hard it was going to be, probably, is the thought process. It is the loneliest, scariest, most gut wrenching, traumatic thing you can do in business. And like, you're crazy for doing this. Like, you really are. You've got to have your head examined to be a founder, to be an entrepreneur, because why would you? Right. So I've lived that life. I'm still working weekends. I'm still working 7 days a week. I'm still up at 5 every morning. I'm still stressed out of my mind about my company and my career, everything. And I'm friggin' 60. And it's like, I can't, I mean, I'm very, very fortunate. I have so many wonderful friends in my personal life, and you're one of my good friends. Like most of my friends, these are corporate guys, like nothing wrong with them. I got a few entrepreneurs, but like where I live in my little village, my little community, my buddy works, he heads animal health at Merck. He's not worried about making payroll. You know what I mean? Like I'm not minimizing it, but like there is something so unique about our tribe of founders that, when I meet one, I'm just like, come on in. Come on, like let's commiserate. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about stress. Let's talk about what books we're reading, how we're going to overcome these constant self-doubt and fear, and paranoia. Like that's our world, right? And it's not just the CEO, because it's also everybody that's working for you. I mean, they stepped into this small, now obviously growing business. They're taking somewhat of a risk. That culture is very, very different than it is for working for a very large bank or a very large, firm or company like that. I'm not minimizing that. It's just different. We need more of this honest communication where we could sit there and say, yeah, man, I can't sleep at night. I'm so stressed about the product, coming to market and it's not moving fast enough, or my runway that's the tribe that I live with. That's our tribe.
The exactly what you just said is why I enjoy doing this podcast as much as I do, because listen, there's nothing wrong with talking about asset classes and AI and net operating incomes and all that. But like, you go to conferences and you hear that all day long in your meetings. Like I want there to be some element of our industry that is even more human in the most genuine and authentic way. And I find that in these conversations. So that's why I love doing these podcasts. You talked about how, just something I wanted to share my perspective on. You talked about how lonely and difficult and grueling this journey is. And then you talk about the people that join you along that journey. I actually think those two things are deeply connected. I believe that, at least for me, the reason why I do what I do, but also the reason why it is so difficult is because you have so many people that have trusted you with either their time, what if they're your staff, or investors that have trusted you with their money, and they've took a risk. This is an early stage business when they come in, right? Years ago. And you have a obligation to literally give them everything you possibly can because they decided to take a risk and a bet on you and not somebody else. You owe that to them. And so, a big reason why I do what I do is to see this through and ensure I get the best possible outcome for every stakeholder, whether that's an employee, investor, whether it's you, whether anybody that has dedicated some portion of themselves or their resources to VendorPM. Now, before you started CREtech and before you got into that world, wasn't there some element of that was you along your journey?
Well, my whole career, I've spent in the commercial real estate industry. So my first company was a media relations firm. Because again, I didn't really have, it's not regret or anything like that. It's just the journey. That's what it was, right? I didn't really have the opportunity to go to college to sort of like say, oh, that field interests me. So when I stumbled upon commercial real estate in my early 20s as an industry, and so I didn't have a strategy, I didn't have a plan. I always liked storytelling. I always liked news. I've always been like an avid reader. So when I kind of fell into that space, it felt pretty good. It was like, oh, so what's my job? My job is to be like a storyteller, media relations guy for real estate companies, commercial. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. And that's what I did for my 20s and my 30s. And I enjoyed it until I didn't. And I was like, yeah, this feels like, I guess you're supposed to just ride it out and then go play golf, but I don't play golf and I don't know how to ride it out. And I like to be busy. So I was just like, I'm going to go someplace else. So I just kind of figured out a way to unwind it and what have you. And it's in somebody else's, hands now, which is great. But I was just like, I'm done. But I stayed in commercial real estate because it's an industry I love. And I mean, like the other thing is just like, we're talking about like hunters and gatherers, like, so all of your clients that you've built this huge platform at VendorPM servicing, they're very much like us, right? So like the real estate industry is as risk averse as an industry as any on earth. And so that sort of gunslinger mentality, that risk fearful mindset, that exists with them because in every project is a snowflake. So we're very much aligned with the industry we're serving, right? So yes, it's some of these companies are larger, they're more corporate, but they're still very, 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 very entrepreneurial. Like that's how every single project is fraught with risk, and that's new. And so, it's sort of like I feel very kindred in spirit with the people like Scott Evans on the podcast. Like, like that's our tribe. So it's not just like us as founders or us as entrepreneurs. It's them too. They live like, and that's one of the reasons why if you want to get into it, like why the prop tech industry hasn't really still scaled, to tell the truth, because we don't really understand them, the customer base. You figured it out, but a lot of them still don't get it. But anyway, that's a whole other topic.
Why did you say PropTech the way you did?
Because I don't know what that means.
What does it mean to you?
I don't know. I never use it. Like,
what do you use?
I'll just say something like, the built world. I'll talk about innovation. I'll talk about technology, but I don't know what prop is. I don't know. Like, is that like a building? Is that a property? I don't know. And by the way, the real estate industry doesn't know what the hell that is. I mean, so I spend most of my time with your customers, current and future. That's what I spend my day doing most of the time. It's just like meeting with real estate companies, trying to attract more of them to the tent. Most of them go, what's prop tech? So we in this industry, and I'm part of it, so I, shoot the arrows at me. We've done a horrible job introducing ourselves to the industry at large. I mean, you go to most of the conferences, and I'm guilty too, man, like guilty. It's the same people speaking, attending over and over and over. What are we doing? We're talking to ourselves. We're talking to the converted. 95% of the industry doesn't know we exist. Like, what are we doing? Who are we talking to here? So, PropTech? No, I'm talking about the built environment. I'm talking about commercial real estate. I'm talking about innovation. That's what I'm talking.
Interesting. Okay, so
over.
Okay, so let's talk. You're talking a lot about the buyers. Let's focus on them for a second. So these are the real estate companies and the real estate leaders that are purchasing software. We're going to call it that. We're not going to call it PropTech for the moment. What is it that you think the buyers need to understand, and what do you think the buyers need to do differently so that the industry as a whole grows and is better because of it? What if you could reach through the screen and like shake the buyer and be like, you need to know this and you need to do this differently? What does that look like?
Thank God we're done talking about me. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
First thing is, let's like understand who they are, right? Like, and this is why I'm one of the many reasons why I'm a fan of you and the team, but the platform, because one of the things that VendorPM does a phenomenal job doing is listening to your customers. I can't tell you how many meetings that maybe I've had a small role in helping you to connect with somebody, and you go in without an agenda. You go in without selling anything. You go in for discovery. Like, so many technology solutions, they don't approach it that way. It's like, let me just like ram this solution, shove this in front of you. Here, don't you want it? Don't you want it? Well, what the hell is it? And how do you know that I need it? So the first step is like, I don't think our industry has done a good job at all in understanding the buyer, right? Number one, they are not risk averse. They are technology risk averse, right? If you don't deliver and I change something and you cost me time and money, shame on me for giving you a chance. So there's this whole concept of risk aversion to adopting new technology solutions. And we don't really get that. The second thing is we don't understand the two R's. That's the risk. The second R is reward. What about this is going to drop to my bottom line? Because if it doesn't, I don't need a nice to have. I don't need a cool shiny object that looks kind of cool, but I don't need that. Right. So like we got to understand, what are their stresses? How do we reduce cost? How do we reduce overhead? How do we create more efficient organizations as a result of adopting this tool? And what we do is we just like ram these products in front of people and go, who doesn't want this? Crickets. Nobody wants it. It's not a problem. But like, it's not to say like, don't start there, but start there and listen, like what you guys have done. Like, start somewhere. Like, are you reading the real estate trade press? Are you reading about, the impact of interest rates, the stresses on supply chain, the pressures on the demand side, the lack of inventory, how hard, like now we're in a labor crisis. Like, okay, like you got to walk in knowing what the stress point is with these companies and then address how this solution will help you solve those couple of these problems. And they should be point solutions in a lot of ways too, to start. Like, let me solve this for you. You've got a labor problem. You've got a capital markets problem. You've got a this problem. Let me help you increase efficiency, and let me take away the risk as well. So I think that's one part. And the other part is like, you know, for when we look at the, like my conference or the other conferences, and they're all great. When you think about like, the tribe, the community, and you look at it and it goes, oh, CTO, CIO, VP of property management, facility. When you start to go to the more of a regional developer, which is the bulk of the industry, they don't have people.
Mhm.
Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Probably the CFO, maybe. Might be the head
Mhm.
of construction. Might be the head of property management. They got that. Is that person coming to a conference, or is that person consuming PropTech content? No. So speak their language, speak their pain, solve a problem. That's what we've done a horrible job as an industry overcoming the skepticism. We've not done a good job storytelling, and we haven't expanded the buyer pool. And that's what I focus on every friggin' day. So yeah, rant over.
So you answered that very much so from the lens of what the seller, being the prop tech company, needs to understand and how they need to approach the buyer. And so we'll come back to what the buyer needs to do differently or potentially adapt to. But let's just dig in a little bit more on the founder side. Pretend I'm a founder listening to this, and everything you said about how I'm like, look how great this is. Why wouldn't you want to buy this? And it's not working. Like, imagine I'm that founder listening, and you're sort of preaching the gospel of understand your buyer. And I'm saying, okay, that conceptually makes sense, but maybe I'm a product led or an engineering led founder. I don't actually, selling isn't in my DNA. What would be your more tactical? Like, what steps 1, 2, 3 to understand my buyer? What are some of the questions to ask? And what if I'm a founder in those shoes? What should I do? Like more tactically.
It's a great question, and I get a lot of that. I think first of all, like I think the perception is that like a technical founder or co-founder or a more of a product person needs to have a marketing and a sales. I don't believe that. I think that like today with the heightened sense of awareness with AI and in the general business vernacular now, I think technology as a general sort of theme is increasingly gaining awareness and interest, right?
Mm.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with like leaning in on the technical and leaning in on the educational. And I don't know that you have to be like, and no disrespect, you've got an amazing sales team and Ben and the whole team and Mike, everybody like great, but like, that's the exception. But I think for other startups, like I would like make the product the hero. Like just really make that product the hero. But 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 you got to like simplify it. Like, let's say it's an AI tool agent for something, for
Mm.
extracting something or something like that. Put it in like the terms of the benefit, the payoff, the time savings. Like, just speak to the language and just storytell consistently. Like, don't assume that anybody is coming to look for us. They're not. They're busy as hell. They have papers on their desk still, stacked up. They're going to conference room to conference room. They're still going to meetings. Like, the industry still works the way it's worked for decades. Like, a lot of it, like the processes haven't changed, right? The knowledge set has changed, and they're slowly starting to embrace more digital, more tech. But like the way that they work is pretty much still the same. So, are you coming to me? No, I've got to go to you. So I gotta find you, and it's not that hard to find where they are. Whether you're using LinkedIn or whether you're going on a road show, pick a particular, like what you guys did really, really successfully, is take down certain markets. Just take them down. Just go in, get on the ground, and take them down. Just go out,
Mm.
make meetings, knock on doors, and go see people. Like, it's old school. Like, this is what we're talking about. It's boots on the ground. That's what I'm talking about. Man in the mirror. It's like, it's time. You got to get dirty, right? And I don't think a lot of people do that.
So It's funny you say that. Okay, sales, bread and butter. I've been knocking door, like literally going door to door since I was 14 years old. I did it 7 days a week for 7 years.
Wait, can you wait? Emiel, why don't you talk about that story a little bit?
Oh no, you're not getting out of this
What was
easy.
your first? What was no? I really think it's interesting. People should know you. What was? Tell me about your jobs when you were a teenager. What'd you do?
The only job I ever had was working for myself. So before that, I was a swimmer, like Speedo cap goggles. I was training before school, after school. I was convinced, and now I say convinced, there wasn't a cell in my body that didn't believe I was going to go to the Olympics. And I was obsessed. I did that for 7 years, twice a day, almost every single day. I was obsessed. I remember my parents wanting to go on a nice family vacation, and I made their life a living hell. I would not miss training for a week. But anyway, long story short, my father, he unfortunately fell ill and passed, and I wanted to do more. I didn't feel like, for some reason, swimming just didn't cut anymore. And then I started a window cleaning business with my co-founder, Dylan, and we were going door to door selling window cleaning. That, over 7 years, evolved into the world of commercial real estate, working with property managers, and it led to the deep understanding of how underserved the vendor and building manager dynamic and workflow truly is. And that's what VendorPM has just been investing tens of millions of dollars to solve over the past 5 years. And it is what we're solving. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing.
That's why you're such a good founder, because that window cleaning story, that's what makes a good founder. And it's the same thing today. It's not any different. People that enter this, commercial real estate, technology, innovation sector. I mean, it's the same methods that you had when you were going door to door in the window cleaning. It's the same thing. This is not an industry that organically just scales. At some
Yeah.
point, with the right solutions, we see it. You're seeing it now, where you're
Yeah.
organically just growing through word of mouth, through the network effect of Vendor PM, the
Yeah.
two sides of the marketplace. You're scaling. But those early days, I know you were showing up in wherever, Chicago or New York. That's what it takes.
I'm happy you said that, because for any early stage founders that are listening to this and thinking, how do I get in front of buyers ultimately? I made the mistakes, and I can save you the time and money and the headache. You're completely right, Mike. So what I was getting at is I believe I'm half decent at sales. I know how to sell. I didn't know, and I don't understand marketing to the level that I'd like to. So, I believed that you could approach this industry with digital marketing and paid ads and all of these things that, to your point, they just don't land. These multi-billion dollar real estate firms aren't Googling vendor management, credentialing, and procurement software. They're not. What are the three things that I've learned over the 5 years that have actually turned into results? One, like literally go to all of the events, boots on the ground, host dinners, host breakfasts, like go to their office and shake their hand, old school and traditional. Number one. Number two is build a network, because it is such a small industry. It's wild how small the industry is. And it's once you become a household name for a few, you almost become a household name for all. And that very much ties to the third point, which is obvious, but you look around and it doesn't seem to be obvious to everybody. Like, just build something that provides immense value to people. And if you're able to create immense value through your product, the fact that it's a small industry and people talk will work to your advantage. Vendor PM was not always an incredible game-changing tool. That's a function of time and resources. If you think that your product is groundbreaking in year one or two, you're nuts. Like there's no world that you've built. I'm just going to use a random example, a Boston Properties or a Colliers or an AY level product in year one or two. There's a reason why there's an adoption curve, and they fit somewhere later on that curve. But we're at a point now where again, every cell in my being has the deepest conviction that we have built something that will completely revolutionize the way vendors and building managers work together. And that is true because of point two. We're just getting people coming to us at this point. We've built the name by being boots on the ground. We have an incredible product that adds value, and it's a small industry and people talk. So it's not super complicated. Save your marketing dollars and invest in those three things. Keep me honest, have I missed the mark on anything there?
No, man, that's exactly it. I think it's the playbook, Emil, that I tell when people ask, like, how do I do it? And it's a first time founder in this industry. I said, this is how you do it. I mean, the industry still operates from FOMO. So when you go get, Boston Properties or great clients like you guys have, people look at that and they know that Jim Whalen's the early adopter, the OG of the space, and Colin on the team, of course, great, or Ben Myers on the sustainability front. When you go get those clients, everybody looks at that and says, "Oh, Boston Property's using it."
Yeah.
But you got to then go out and canvas.
Yeah. So that's a lot on the founder side. The buyers now. This is where I think people don't talk about enough because, maybe they're scared to criticize those who hold the purse in this dynamic. But, it takes two to tango. What is it that the buyers need to understand? What is it that in a perfect world you wish they did differently? Is it that you wish they took more risk on earlier stage companies? Is it that you wish they were more educated in certain areas? Like, what can the buyers do to elevate the overall state of the industry?
Great question. It's like, I'm not going to tell them they should hire more talent, because that's, again, that flies in the face of the reality, which is that no, they're not, in many cases, not hiring. You say, well, if there's a shortage of talent in the industry, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, meaning that if a lot of real estate companies don't have designated people who know how to vet, who know how to look and vet and onboard, right? Let's make that assumption once we get past the Boston Properties and the Hines of the world, or
Yeah.
the tornadoes. Like, if we get past that, we say, okay, what I would really want them to do is to sort of not be afraid of stepping into this conversation. We are an ecosystem, a community of people that want to help them adopt solutions
Mm-hmm.
that on their business. So what I really say is, like, just join the conversation and come into an experience like this to discover what the skepticism is a lot from a lot of them, because and this is where I spend a lot of my time, is like attracting more of the buyer pool.
Yep.
And when you get to the next tier of real estate companies beyond the top 250, 300, whatever, that we all seem to celebrate, which is wonderful, they come to a CREtech conference or whatever, some of our friendly peers, they're also doing, they don't want to be sold. And it's like people just like think, oh, is that a buyer? Like, let's go. You know what I mean? It's like, we got to just, like, control our excitement a little bit, and, like, let's have conversations. Let's talk. Like, that's why I think it's really important. Like, when vendor PM comes and wants to go talk to this company, just take a lunch and learn. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is AI? What are the practical use cases that we're seeing it? Whether it's on the property management, the vendor management side, whether it's on the accounting side, like, what are the practical use cases? Just to be a little bit more curious as to what's happening here, and not feel like, you're going to get pitched and sold, or you're just going to go way over your head, right? Or anything like that. Because that's like the disconnect with
Yeah.
technology. That's why, like, a lot of the language that we use at CREtech, that's why I don't like this prop tech thing. Because
Yep.
I don't know
I
what,
get it.
right? And also, like, why we use words like innovation. What is innovation? Well, innovation could be how you reimagine a suburban B office building into apartments. That's reimagination. That's innovation. Like, let's talk that. Oh, and then here are some tools that could help support you along that journey. So I just really want, I think it's a lot incumbent upon us. We just need to do a better job of storytelling, to say we are not selling solutions that you don't want. We are part of, like, just like you have your financial, you have your marketing, you have your construction. We just want to be at the table.
Has CREtech ever offered, whether it's to the buyers or the sellers, almost like a masterclass or a series of courses on the how, like how to get a deal done, how to get in front of buyers, how to win them over?
Yeah.
I think about, and I want to hear your answer on the CREtech front, but I think about whether it's CREtech or all some of the other conferences out there. The why is clear, and it differs by conference, but let's just say CREtech is, you want to bring the industry's leading technology companies and the industry leading real estate companies into a room together. That's your why, right? The what is the conference and a lot of the content that you produce, but the how is what we're debating and discussing. And there's clearly gaps and therefore opportunities on both the buyer and the seller side. I think that would be something that people would froth at the mouth for, whether you're a buyer or seller. Like, run a course or a masterclass on how to get a deal done or how to purchase software and implement it correctly. I don't think there's enough conversation around that.
I think it's a great idea. I've thought about it. We've not implemented it. It's a great idea. It still sits in the back of my crazy mind. I know you do stuff like that all the time. Listen, we're not here just to talk to you about what our solution, but let's talk about innovation and what we're seeing with some of our clients and like how they are onboarding and what some of the tangible benefits are seeing and map it out. Like most of the calls that I get are, hey, could you spend an hour with our senior leadership team just to sort of map out the ecosystem? What's happening? Who's doing what? What are the point solutions that are growing and scaling? What are some like I get that all day long. But again, it's not up to me. It's like we need more people doing it. And that's what you guys are doing. That's what everybody should be doing. Like
Yeah.
that's how we should all approach it from an
Yeah.
educational.
And why are they coming to you for that? Number one, because you have positioned yourself as a credible source of knowledge and information. And number two is that they know you're not going to sell them anything. Right. And so that comes back to everything that you just said. Has has the tone in the room changed since the new administration? Have you seen beyond just the tone or the feeling in the room, have there been any tactical or practical changes? And do you have any predictions as to, where our industry is headed in the direction associated with some of the changes that we're seeing?
Having this long view of specifically real estate, on the federal level, on the national level, it doesn't really trickle down too much, whether it's, you're red or green. It's such a hyper local business, commercial real estate. I mean, I have my own personal feelings, but, in terms of, what's going on and my core belief system, that's my personal belief. How does it impact our industry? I think in general, and it's, people are going to follow interest rates and what the Fed does and things like that, and the capital markets more than anything. And then they're going to follow locally what's happening. I mean, I can't even stress enough like how local this industry is. It is down to the municipality that they're operating in. What does the zoning look like? What does the approvals look like? What does the sentiment look like? What does the NIMBY opposition look like? Where are the moratoriums? Like, how are they feeling about data centers? How are they feeling about ground movement? Like, that's the sentiment. So what I really pay attention to more is like local politics, very local, but also like statewide. Like if you look at New York City, so right now, like a lot of a lot of this is panicked, rightfully so, about a lot of the unwinding of a lot of the
Yep.
climate initiatives, and both from a federal level, but also from a corporate level. So a lot of companies are just backing away from these commitments and what have you. And the truth of the matter is like, yeah, I think incentives are really, really good, but unless the climate tech, and again, I don't use words like ESG or sustainability because I'm tech, right? Unless the climate tech sector can make a financial argument that by adopting this technology, we will lower your costs and we will improve your margins. Should be based on like what's right and wrong thing to do. I mean, this is a capitalistic world, right? So it should be it shouldn't be based on like, shaming people for doing or not doing. I just lean in on the tech front, like what's good for business, right? I make my own personal decisions as it relates to what I believe in, and I will
Yep.
vote with my pocketbook and my wallet. That's how I vote. So I will make my own choices, right? Like in my house, we throw out anything that's plastic, and we make our own decisions in this house,
Yep.
right? And what we eat, what we don't eat, what we buy, what we don't buy, and how we live. We have EVs, like that's a personal decision. If you're asking me about business, I think like if you look at New York City, despite the headwinds coming in on climate, New York City has made a very powerful, aggressive statement that they want to be the climate capital of the United States. That's not going away. Same thing with Boston. Same thing in other parts of the country. Where are the jobs? The jobs that for clean energy are in red states. Why? It makes good business. I mean, the
Yep.
tariffs are scary, but we'll see.
Let's say that you were sitting at the table in the White House representing the commercial real estate industry. What would you advise the new administration to do, or what could they do to support the initiatives that, that CREtech supports, that I support, that the industry wants to see more of? Like, is there any federal policy that you believe could or should be implemented to improve what we do every day?
No, I've always kind of felt that, like, it's both extremes. Like, don't over regulate and don't over tax, like on tariffs and things like that. Don't be protectionist and like just get out of the way. And I'm not saying like government has a role, but as it relates to like business and what have you, yeah, I get it, but like leave it to the free market. That's kind of the way that I always look at it. Like I'm a free market guy with, with just not doing stupid things for people and the planet.
Let's wrap this up. I have one more for you. At the start, you talked about the fact that through your journey, through your survival, you've been faced with a ton of trials and tribulations. You've also been doing this for a number of years, and you've built up a pretty incredible network of super intelligent, smart innovators. I mean, Scott Reckler is one name that comes to mind. RXR is an investor in VendorPM, and I had a chance to meet with Scott, and wow, like what a, you meet those people and it just, you walk out a different man than you walked into that meeting.
And he's a man in the arena. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
and I've known Scott for 20 something years. That's the epitome of a man in the mirror. I mean, that if you look at, and also sorry to,
All good.
got me on Scott. Like, and then again, I'm fortunate to know thousands of Scotts. I mean, Scott's extraordinary, and he's at a different level. But like, if you follow Scott's career through the 2000s, through 2008, through like every market correction cycle, 9/11, like that guy has figured it out, repositioned and rebuilt and remade and reimagined. So is Scott Reckler a prop tech guy? No, but he's an innovator.
Yeah.
He's a blank canvas guy. That's our tribe.
Yeah, and he understands the role technology plays in all of that. But when you think back to your trials and tribulations, when you think back to the things you've learned from the Scott Recklers of the world, what has been the most transformative either experience, whether it was, a specific trial or tribulation or a specific learning from one of the Scotts of the world? Like when you look back, was there one of those moments that was like, this is an inflection point that dramatically impacted the trajectory of your life, your career, and who you are?
No, because I'm being challenged by those every day, my friend. Like, so it's not one or two. It's thousands of small ones and big ones. I mean, whether it was COVID, I mean, I'm in the live conference business, like COVID. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't fun. Before that, it was, it was 2008. Then it was, I mean, just the last couple of years have not been easy in our industry because the real estate industry has been stressed and tech has, felt it as a result. Also, the venture world's tightened up the last couple of years. No, I think it's just the mindset of this too shall pass, but let's figure it out. Like, let's lean in and figure it out and just show up. Like, I think a lot of what I've learned is just, you just got to show up. And when you sit down at the start of every day, and what I learned a long, long, long time ago is like, don't look for a day without conflict, stress, challenges, self-doubt, fear. Just don't look for a day without any of that, because that's not life. Right? So that's why I keep going back to man in the mirror, man in the arena. Sort of like what I learned very early on was, you can't be fragile in this sort of world of, and it's not just like as a founder, it's like for anybody. Like I talked to my daughter, she's going to be going off to college, and we're talking about AI. I mean, imagine what it's like to be a teenager today. Like, you're thinking about AI, you think about social media pressures. So if you just like what I learned from people like Scott, and many others, just by example, and it's just show up. Know it's going to be hard, and just it's like the other thing that I always come back to is the Bruce Lee's sort of philosophy about be water, right? You know that, and I'm reading a book on him that was written by his daughter, and it's just like it's just to flow with it, and then just to, like, every day, like water, put water in a cup, you put it in a mug, it just adapts. So it's just that sense of like, you know, just be water, just adapt, just go with that sort of flow, and don't ride it, that wave. Don't go too high, don't go too low. Just show up and know, okay, what do we got today?
You can't beat it. You can't win life. You can't, your to-do list will never be done. So you might as well show up, meet life where it's at, lean into it, and just be as present with every trial, tribulation, and experience that comes your way.
And at the end of the day, it's like Did I push myself as hard as I possibly can? Did I exhaust myself? Did I leave it all on the table? Right. And I'm not, I sometimes, yeah, those moments of self-doubt, you're like, yeah, I could have picked a little bit of an easier path. I mean, I'm giving 110% at 60, like, but at the end of the day, like when I reflect on it, it's like, yeah, it's all there. I put it out all on the table. Like, I've exhausted it. I pushed this machine, this mind as hard as it possibly could. And I've squeezed every single ounce out of it. If I look back and say, I try not to compare myself like, oh, I didn't get that. Or it's more like, did Michael Beckerman with what he was given, did he take it as far as he possibly could? And I think in that way, yeah, I think I did okay. I did all right.
If you aren't stressed at times, if you don't doubt
When that
yourself
was
at
it.
times,
When that-
if you ultimately, what does all that mean? It's some degree of discomfort. If you're not feeling discomfort from time to time, I think you're living a relatively stagnant life. And I think all of those signs are just good indications that you're growing. And I think, growth doesn't have to be the North Star, but whether it's in business or your personal life, I mean, I think that it's important. It doesn't have to be the North Star, but I think that even if your North Star is something completely different, I think that you still want to experience some degree of growth in that thing. And as a result, you should experience some discomfort as you continue to push the limits. So I think that that is actually a perfect way to end this. I think that we are all better because of you, and we appreciate everything you do for this industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Beckerman. Where can people find you?
Well, first of all, they don't have to find me. I'm like, they
You're
don't.
everywhere.
No, meaning like, I don't know. Just, Michael at CREtech is my email. But I got to thank you, my friend, because you're just, number one, you're such a good human and you're such a good guy. And, I know how much you care about the product and I know how passionate you are about building Vendor PM to make an impact on the vendor procurement marketplace. And you are making the impact, but you're a great founder because, like, I think from a human point of view, you've done great also to sort of humanize the industry. I think I love this podcast because you do make it very sort of personal and human. It's not just like, well, Michael, what are the best use cases for AI? I mean, there's a place for that. A lot of people are doing that, but a lot of people just aren't talking. And I think that goes back to how do we how do we get more of the real estate industry to sort of come and join us? We just gotta have conversations. So I love what you did at CREtech with the hot takes and you do it everywhere. I mean, I just love that stuff. You humanize it. My point is like, you're very serious about your CEO role and your fiduciary responsibility with your investors. I get that, but you're making it fun and joyful and human. I just think the world of you and the team and what you've built. I'm such a big fan of Emiel. So I appreciate the time very much, man. Just keep on keeping on.
I appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
All right, brother. Be good.